Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and I've got to make a big decision. I got to choose what am I going to be maining for the first season of The War Within. And I've been playing World of Warcraft basically since Vanilla WoW. I've been able to achieve multiple gladiators, rank 1 arena titles. I've won MLG tournaments. I've been commentating tournament level gameplay for the past decade or so. I've been playing this game for a really long time. I know all the ins and outs. I know what I like. I know what I'm looking for specifically as far as gameplay is concerned as a content creator. So for me, I want to pick something that's likely performing towards the top end. I want to pick something that is going to be flashy. I'm going to be able to make some, clips out of it or funny moments out of it. I really want to create opportunities like that. I do want something that is going to be strong in world PvP, as world PvP at the start of the expansion is always the best. This is like by far the best time to do world PvP. The most amount of players are out there. You can find tons of opportunities for really cool engagements, and not to mention that rated PvP is not going to be starting for some time. Competitive dungeon running is not going to be started for some time. So exploring the world and engaging in these kind of unique moments is probably going to be the best use of your time, at least for likely the first week. So I really wanted to make the best of that. So when you're considering world PvP, you got to think about 1v1. So there's a lot that I've just said there. It's got to be flashy towards the top end in terms of performance. It's got to have some decent 1v1. And I know a lot of you that have been following me for a while probably expect me to say balanced Druid. And I have to say, I have been slowly liking it more and more. I don't know if I want to say it's my favorite yet, but I've been playing it in some Battleground Blitzes on the pre-patch, been testing it most recently on the beta as well, and finally discovering some builds that I can jam with a little bit. But for me, the biggest problem for Balanced Druid is that it's 1 versus 1 is just not that good. It just doesn't have the type of self-healing that some other classes still have. Now, it is it's probable that they will reduce the self-healing of classes that remain, maybe bringing them down to the same level of what Balanced Druid is at. But that's like the main difficulty of it, is that you kind of get outlasted in a lot of 1v1 situations. But it is great for Battleground Blitz. I love stealthing in, carrying the flag, sneaking in, going after the enemy flag carrier with my cooldowns, and really being able to like snap a lot of crowd control onto enemy healers. So it still has the ability to be flashy in those battleground situations. But for me, I think the biggest commander of skill and what's really drawing my attention at the moment is actually Mage. I think almost any spec of Mage, but I think Frost, considering it's I would say a lot of people are agreeing it's probably the highest performing DPS spec at the moment, but Arcane as well. I think Ice Wall, Ring of Frost, all these AoE CCs, line of sight blockers, these types of effects are way more humorous, way more flashy than pretty much anything you can do on any other class. Like, this has to be like, if you want to be like the Faker of World of Warcraft or something from League of Legends, a League of Legends Pro, I feel like Mage is kind of like the class you're going to want to go for. And then possibly a secondary to that would be something like a Rogue. I think that Subtlety is definitely performing the highest at the moment, moving into level 80 content, obviously. I'm not talking about the pre-patch here. But Assassination is also great, I think, as a secondary for almost any situation. And I think Rogue has great 1v1. So am I really going to think about maining a Rogue? I don't know, man. I don't know if I can get myself to main a Rogue. I want to try it at some point, but it feels like something that I don't do very often. It would feel kind of left field a little bit. I also want to make sure that I have a healer. So I'm kind of thinking about Restoration Shaman at the moment as my healer. I feel like Static Field Totem, Thunderstorm, knockbacks, stuns with Lasso, Lava Burst damage now, baseline damage talents. It's a really fun healer all around. I think it's got good mobility for Battlegrounds with Ghost Wolf. Windrush Totem is actually pretty good in Battleground situations as well. Not really considering 1v1 with the Resto Shaman. Resto Shaman will probably be something I level a little bit later, but it's the healer that is definitely standing out to me at the moment in terms of what I'm looking to lead with. Which is a bit different because usually I level a Discipline Priest. That's kind of been my go-to. But now that Resto Shaman actually has baseline damage capabilities to do damage, I feel like it's kind of attracting me a bit more as I picked it up throughout Dragonflight. And I think the hero talent trees for it are likely going to be pretty fun as well. Although the Void Weaver for Priest, man, this is such a hard decision to make. That's why we're making the video here, for me to kind of just ramble through my thoughts here on making this selection process for myself, because I'm sure that you're all sitting at home trying to do the same type of selection process. So for me, I think my top go-tos are like Mage, Warlock, Resto Shaman, something like that. Would be my top go-tos. And then I'll probably do Druid, assuming that there's enough time. Now, I think that they are trying to make it easier than it has ever been in the past as far as leveling alts and trying to maintain them. And if it ends up being problematic, I'm sure that if we submit feedback around it, that they'll likely do something to make that easier, because I don't think their goal is to try and hamstring people's abilities to play alts. It seems like it's supposed to be a very alt-friendly expansion, and that seems to be the direction that they've been trending over Dragonflight and now into the War Within. So likely we're going to be able to get quite a few alts, but like, what character do I want to be the most serious with? You know, I'm doing all this discussion, I'm doing all this talk. Am I just going to end up playing a balanced Druid anyways? Is that really it? I'm just going to end up playing a balanced Druid? It really doesn't even matter what I'm thinking or what I'm talking about. I'm just going to end up playing it. I'm sure I'm going to end up playing it just because it's been my main for so long. And I'm sure I'm probably going to end up pushing it by the end of the season for some reason. But I could see myself having a lot of fun early on Mage. So I think like early on, I'm probably going to be playing quite a bit of Mage. And maybe I'll play a bit of Druid. Maybe I'll play a bit of everything. Maybe I'm just going to main everything. Maybe we don't even need to make this decision because this is too hard. Maybe we don't need to make this choice. Maybe we just level everything and we play everything, right? I can do that. That's fair. That's an option. That should be an option. And if that isn't an option, I don't care. It has to be an option. This needs to be an option. I want to be able to play everything except maybe Hunter or BM Hunter. MM Hunter looks fun. Survival Hunter looks fun, except maybe BM Hunter. So now I'm thinking at this point, like, what do I absolutely not want to play? It's probably like BM Hunter or something. I could probably handle avoiding playing that. That probably wouldn't upset me too much. But I want to play pretty much everything else. Even something like Enhancement Shaman, which isn't necessarily performing that great. I still probably want to, play around with it a little bit at some point. And I think at the beginning of Dragonflight, I was able to have at least 4 characters going. Maybe more than 4. So I think I can do it. I think I can do Mage, Warlock, Druid, Shaman. And that would be like the 4 war bands, like we get the 4 war bands going. Don't question why some of my characters are, less than dressed. Okay, don't go into that. There's no need to go into that, right? That's a story for another time. But I think that I can make this work. I can do Druid, Shaman, Warlock, Mage. I've got all the casters, dude, with this setup. And then if I want to expand past this, then we can start looking at things like Discipline Priest, maybe memeing on a Blood Death Knight. I know Fury Warrior looked really good. Like, if you want something that's like strong and simple, Fury Warrior, Devastation Evoker. Strong, simple, effective. Those are great picks if you want that just as a main, or maybe if you just want an easy alt, something as a secondary to be able to pick up. Those ones will be good, and they will feel really solid. Red Paladin seems like it's underperforming. Paladin in general doesn't seem like a great class, at least if you're considering PvP. Holy's just been getting nerf, and Ret is not performing as well as I think as it currently is in Dragonflight, or has for most of Dragonflight. And then Prot is Prot. Probably not the best flag carry. I don't know if I think I might have seen one Prot Pally in all the Battleground blitzes I've done. I feel like I've done hundreds now at this point in the pre-patch. I saw one. So Paladin is kind of like I'm probably not going to touch it for a while class. MM Hunter I really like playing though, and I've made a lot of MM Hunter guides in here. I know you guys have watched, and I think they've been really helpful to a lot of people. So I think MM Hunter is definitely one that's on my radar for like an alt a little bit later on. Windwalker Monk. I think Monk is probably another one I'm going to put into storage. So Paladin and Monk are probably going to be in storage for some time. Demon Hunter also possibly. I feel like for me, the problem with leveling a Demon Hunter is that it's got 2 specs and effectively like 1 PvP spec. So you don't get like a lot of variety, right? Whereas if you level a Warlock, you have 3 specs to explore, 3 DPS specs of Mage. As Druid, you can do all the roles, so it's really effective and efficient in that regard. And then Shaman, you can do all the roles as well, melee, ranged, and healer. So like, I get a nice coverage of options and directions to play the game with these 4. So I think that these are likely going to be the first 4 that I level. And I don't know if it's in what order it's going to be. There's a lot of time. And you can follow me live in my stream, linked in the description down below. But I think I finally got through it, that these make the most sense. And it's probably something like Priest is like coming up there in terms of what I would like to play like next, you know, like if we line up the list and we make it next. But Paladin and Monk are pretty low on the radar for me personally. Just don't really like them. I don't know if that's like a personal preference, but I think it's mostly just they don't really have like, you can't like always do damage on demand. They're really compromised by crowd control, and if you've seen me play on my stream, I get mad when I get CC'd. So like I play Boom King because I'm immune to polymorph, and I still get mad when I get CC'd by something else. Shaman's really good at avoiding CC. Mage is really good at it. Warlock can be really good at avoiding CC. So I really like that. Reducing the amount of CC that's being applied to me, that's going to be important in terms of selecting a character. I think this is it. We got the roster lined up: the Druid, the Shaman, the Warlock, the Mage. Don't know if it'll be in this order, but I'm going to try to get all 4 of these guys up and running, and probably flex between multiple specs depending on how well their stats overlap, because typically like Mage can play all 3 specs with haste and verse. Warlock, pretty similar, can do it. Maybe you want like a little mastery for AF or something like that, but you can kind of get away with just haste verse. So you can just play all 6 specs with 1 set of gear, which is great. Druid's a little bit harder. Now you can kind of get away with Resto with haste verse, depending on what they do with tuning as well. Play like a Cyclone play style. But I can't remember what Feral wants, and I don't know if I want to play Feral or not. But Enhance, I don't think shares much with Ellie. Typically, it's like you're running Mastery as Enhance and Haste as well. I guess you run a little bit of a mix. You might be able to get away with like mixing the gear a bit on Shaman. So I think this setup for me has enough variety in it. Has the play styles and the flashy moves and the crowd control and the high level of viability that I want. So it's going to satisfy the needs that I am looking for. So I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion, my thoughts on it. We got the warband. We got the roster locked in. Thank you, as always, for all of your continued support. If you want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash the subscribe button. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.